believe we are live streaming now. Yes, we are. So I wanted to welcome everybody. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, and welcome those who are watching us on a live stream. We are audio and video recording and live streaming this town meeting. And we on our YouTube channel, and it shall form part of the record for which we will be retaining according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about the retention bylaw, you can contact the clerk's office. So council adopted at our last meeting our new land acknowledgement, and since we've just celebrated our very first National Truth and Reconciliation Day, we will start this evening's meeting with a land acknowledgement. The town of Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. We also acknowledge that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. So next, I will ask if there is anyone who is here for open forum this evening. Madam Deputy Clerk, have we had, oh, none received. I see it on the screen. Thank you very much. And then I will go to item number 3, which is approval of the agenda. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? Councillor Van Berkel, Councillor Waters. Any agenda repair required by anyone? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. The next is present disclosure of interest. Is there anyone who has any pecuniary or disclosures of conflict for this evening's meeting? Seeing none, we'll move to presentations and petitions. So the first thing I'd like to do is ask for council's indulgence if we could please ask for to pull DSR 43-21 on tonight's agenda and bring it forward at this time and ask if there's any discussion on that item. That was item C1. So I'm going to ask then if we could ask the friends and the family of Troy Scott who are here in the meeting to welcome them and ask them to please turn their cameras on if they're comfortable doing so at this time. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome to Taylor and Ashley, and welcome to Kevin and friends. It's great to see you. So recently Innisfil, the reason we're here tonight is recently Innisfil lost one of our own to COVID-19, and tonight council is recognizing a dearly missed friend, father, brother, business owner, son, neighbor, and volunteer, Troy Scott. As a community, we relied on and we were touched by Troy's generosity and kind spirit. I honestly don't think the word no was in Troy's vocabulary. Over these past few months since we lost Troy, it has been made abundantly clear to me that he has had a lasting impact on our community, and we need to ensure that we recognize him appropriately in a way that is meaningful to him and his family and helps to continue his legacy as always helping his neighbors. With that said, Council is proud to announce the rebranding of our community fridge program in Troy's honor. This dedication seemed so appropriate to all of us, given Troy's connection with Foodland in Stroud and Cookstown, and the countless donations he made to our community partners, including the Innisfil Community Church's Food Bank. In addition to those contributions, Troy was also a huge supporter of our pitch-in committee. So I would invite Councillor Fowler, who's chair of the pitch-in committee, to say a few words.
Thank you, Your Worship. To put it in a very simple terms, Troy was a man of the people. He was a massive supporter of pitch-in. Whenever donations were to come in, he would go above and beyond, using his position to get that little extra, just to get that motivation to the people to come out and help, to clean, to in essence, what he did was he inspired people. He was always there with a smile. Anytime his name is brought up with warmth and recognition. You can't go to a point, any corner of Innisfil, where he's not recognized or known for his good deeds. And he was an absolute. He was felt by all of us this year on the pitching committee. His absence was felt. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to memorize his efforts, for the numerous years of work that he did and the contributions that he had. So we're creating a plaque for Troy in memory, and we're commemorating his commitment to volunteerism in Innisfil. Are we presenting it here? I believe so. Yes, perfect. This is going to be going up in Town Hall. Yes, and this is going to be for everybody to see the man he was and how his efforts and good deeds will not be forgotten. So thank you for sharing him with Innisfil.
Thank you, Chair Fowler. So now I will turn it over to Kevin Augustine. And I see Kyle and Mr. Scott.
Thank you for the kind words. I know he's very thought of and very helpful, and you're right, you never say no. We appreciate all that you guys have done and recognizing Troy, and hopefully it continues on, and we remember this for a long time. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kyle. And Kevin, were you going to talk about the golf tournament?
Yeah, so tonight we did a check presentation earlier, and tonight, because of Troy's memory, the tournament we had, we were able to present to the Rotary Club of Innisfil as well as the Innisfil Food Bank 2 checks for $6,000 to each organization for their efforts in fundraising and what efforts in
recording Innisfil. In progress.
And going forward, it'll be a memorial tournament going forward, and hopefully each year we can make the same presentations year over year.
That's absolutely fabulous, and yeah, I think it was such a fitting tribute for a man who was very happy to be on a golf course whenever he was able to be. So I think that's absolutely fabulous, and also to Troy's girls, Taylor and Ashley, know that your community is here for you, and you know, if there's anything that we can do for you, you please reach out to us. So I want to thank all of you, Kevin, Bill, Kyle, Ashley, and Taylor, for joining us this evening. We appreciate how difficult these last few months have, and we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for allowing us to share this presentation with the community that valued Troy so much. So thanks again very much, and you'll see the Troy Scott community fridges rolling out throughout Innisfil very soon.
Great, thank you.
Take care.
See you guys.
Thanks everyone. So our next presentation is Operations Services. Oh, Councillor Nicol, you want me to read that recommendation?
Sorry, Your Worship. Yeah, I don't know who the mover and seconder was. I missed that, but I'm sure that there's a lineup
to be a part of this recommendation. So I'll leave it with you.
Okay, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Waters, Councillor Asadi, that the presentation remembering and recognizing Troy Scott be received. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. So our next item are operations services, and it's regarding a presentation on Phragmites. Mr. Ninehouse, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor Davidson and members of Council. The town's operating department, in collaboration with the County of Simcoe, has been running an invasive Phragmites control program for the last 4 years that is focused on invasive Phragmites within the town and county right-of-ways within Innisfil. The town's operating budget for this program has been about $10,000 annually. The town has obtained the services of an external licensed contractor, Greenstream Lawn and Vegetation Management, Inc., to complete the applications using Roundup Weather Mix herbicide over the past 4 years where allowed. Results of this program can be seen throughout the years by the area of the invasive Phragmites that has been sprayed along our roadside ditches. In the first year of applications, about 14 hectares of invasive Phragmites were sprayed. And in 2021, the area sprayed has been down to about 2 hectares. So you can see the shrinking of the invasive species. Steve Ford, owner of Greenstream, is here tonight to answer any questions that council may have regarding the herbicide application. But first, it is my pleasure to introduce to council Dr. Janice Gilbert, founder and executive director of the Invasive Phragmites Control Center. Dr. Gilbert has over 15 years experience in researching, monitoring, and managing invasive Phragmites. Dr. Gilbert established the Ontario Phragmites Working Group back in 2011 and serves as co-chair now. She has contributed to the development of the Ontario Best Management Practices and Roadside Best Management Practices documents for invasive Phragmites. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert, for taking the time out of your busy schedule for being here with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And it's a pleasure to be here. First of all, my condolences to the Scott family. Troy sounded like just a really nice man. Okay? So yeah, I just wanted to say that. That's a nice tribute for him. Yeah, so I'm going to give you the Coles Notes version of Phragmites. Usually I talk for about 45 minutes, an hour. So I had to, Jeremy had to help me take out a lot of slides last night. Anyway, next slide. I'm just going to go very quickly into some background. I'll just click through all these, please. We do have a native Phragmites on the landscape, Phragmites australis, subspecies australis. But the problematic one is this invasive one from Europe. And there's been a lot of work on trying to figure out where it came from in Europe. But basically, we just know it's not supposed to be here. And it actually was recognized as Canada's worst invasive plant back in 2005. And so next slide, please. When it first starts, it's a really sticky plant. You don't really notice it. It behaves itself like our native plant, grows amongst our native plant. The next slide, please. It's when it gets to this stage here that people start to realize they have a significant issue and start to deal with it. This is the Kincardine shoreline, which is now all cleaned up, by the way. Next slide, please. So it's a perennial grass. And if we look at where it does grow naturally in Europe, there's some clonal stands that have been there for over 1,000 years, and they grow in monoculture there as well, with all the checks and balances in place. So it tells us here in Ontario, we need to get rid of this plant. Humans do. Mother Nature can't. It has a lot of mechanisms for spread, seeds, and any viable plant part. They'll land in the water, they'll develop roots and shoots, and if they land in moist sediment, that's where they get started. So next slide, please. And these feathery seed heads, I just have some images of slow coming on. Nope. Anyway, so yeah, there's feathery seed heads. You see them this time of year in all viable plant parts. As I said, they land in the water. On the Great Lakes, it's a significant issue. as you can see, the International Joint Commission finally recognized Phragmites as an issue on the Great Lakes, significant issue a couple of years ago. So the map for Ontario should be redder, but anyway, you can see it's widespread, and there's a binational group working on this issue. Next slide, please. One of the major spread vectors is our roads. And yeah, next slide, please. And one of the big things that we're realizing now is the heavy equipment goes into an area, a ditch, there's Phragmites, they do the work, they load the equipment, move it elsewhere in the province, and they don't clean the equipment off. So that's one mechanism for it to be spread. Next slide, please. And so you don't have to go too far in Southern Ontario to see Phragmites along our roads. And from the roads, it gets into the creeks, from the creeks to the wetlands, into our natural areas, onto the Great Lakes. And so it's causing a significant issue. And next slide, please. For humans, there are a number of them when it gets established. It impacts on recreational opportunities, certainly tourism in areas on the Great Lakes where Phragmites has taken over the shorelines. This has happened in a lot of areas. Property values, lakeshore property values, they drop, damage to infrastructure. And of course, there's also risk from fires, which are quite bad in the dormant season, and blocked intersections cause road hazards. Next slide, please. The main reason I became, you can just click these bullets, please. The main reason I became involved in Phragmites is because of the impact on our natural areas, the wetland systems, and the wildlife that rely on these systems. I'm a wetland ecologist by trade. And when I first started recognizing we had a problem back in 2005 in Ronda Provincial Park, that's when alarm bells went off and I started working on this issue. Next slide, please. So I did a lot of studies. I did a lot of presentations over the years. And in 2017, I decided there was a huge gap in actually helping people deal with it. So I started the Invasive Phragmites Control Center as a not-for-profit. You can just click the next bullet. And basically, our focus is on these natural systems, where species at risk habitat, really sensitive areas. And I have some amazing partners that help me to make this all work. We do a lot of programs, we do control work, and we also do monitoring and management plans and all aspects of what's needed. Next slide, please. Two of the main ways of controlling Phragmites is one is mechanical, where we actually can go in and manually control, and the other is chemical. So you can now click two slides ahead, please. Yeah, I'll go back one. Click one more. Click one more. There we go. So there are a lot of people out in the landscape, a lot of volunteers that do Phragmites work in the water, spading and cane cutting and steel cutting. Next slide, please. And we have the absolute privilege to work with these people. A lot of these people buy their own equipment. We supply cane cutters and do the training and whatnot. Next slide, please. And these volunteers dedicate thousands of hours out there cleaning up their natural areas. Next slide, please. We also help manually control. But you see behind Josh here, it can be exceedingly hard to deal with this plant in some areas. So next slide, please. We have equipment called truxers, where we can come in, and we have 3 of these where we can come in the water and clear out the Phragmites. That program is working exceedingly well. Next slide, please. We also use herbicides, and we do have some available in Canada and Ontario on dry land application. If we're not doing it on roads or infrastructure, we need what's called a letter of opinion. So that's a check in the system. So I'm just going to show you a couple of slides. You can click them slowly in succession. And this is just typical of where we've been doing work on Lake Huron shoreline. You can't see the lake out there. In the water, we use cutting to drown methods. And next slide, please. On dry land, we use herbicides, and the result is quite remarkable. Next slide, please. Thank you. And we now have available, next slide, please, for the first time ever in Canada and Ontario, a water-safe herbicide. And we're so excited that this is actually on board. So this is going to be a game changer for us. Next slide, please. The one thing I'd like to mention is when we use herbicides, people think we kill everything, and we do not. We kill the Phragmites, the native plants come back, the insects come back, the birds come back, and there's lots and lots of really good studies showing this. And I've seen it with my own eyes, which is why I advocate using herbicides. Next slide, please. For roads, the most efficient way to deal with Phragmites on roads, if it's dry, is the glyphosate Weather Max. And at the right concentration with an additional surfactant, you get a really good kill rate, as you heard that success rate that's going on in Innisfil. Next slide, please. You can just go through these bullets. So what I work with a lot of municipalities, they do the roads, and so there's a strategy where this can work, and it's certainly working in Innisfil. Know where the locations are, what kind of actions you can take, develop the partnerships, because it's not just the municipal roads, it's county roads, MPO roads. Sometimes the contractors only for one of those, not all of them. It's not efficient. And then also dealing with the Phragmites outside of the roadside ditch allowance on the private properties. And I've been trying to get MTO to recognize that that's something they have to add to their program as well. And then prioritize the sites, because everyone's on limited budgets, and then just have an action plan, and also just monitor to see how it's working. Next slide, please. There are a number of really good pieces of information on this in the Clean Equipment Protocol. There's some municipalities have actually implemented this in their tenders to stop it spreading around, so they're not spending more money to deal with it. It's established. Next slide, please. We developed a couple of years ago some information packages for roadside control, which MTO has taken, and next slide, please, adopted, as well as for agricultural use. These are available to anybody as well on the Ontario Phragmites Working Group website. Next slide, please. I want you to be aware, if you aren't already, there's a Green Shovels initiative to deal with Phragmites province-wide. So getting a plan together for the province, and also the funding to support it. And the slogan is frag-free by 2033. And so I just want you to be aware that there's going to be more information coming about this. There's going to be more education, awareness, and funding available. And so we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together in the province to get all of the municipalities dealing with this plan. And then we will be successful. So I just wanted to mention that. There's some more information about that program on the Green Shovels website. So yeah, so that's basically my information, except next slide, please. I just want to, I want to convey that, you know, for groups that are just getting started, it's never too late, but you eventually are gonna have to deal with it. So the sooner the better. And the next slide, please. There is some more information available on the Ontario Phragmites Working Group, and also the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative. That's that binational group I mentioned. Really good information on both those websites. And last slide, I just want you to be aware that there's another invasive plant that I'm starting to see across the province. I do a lot of traveling, and it's called silvergrass. It's outcompeting Phragmites. I've noticed this now on Highway 402. It's near Kitchener. It's near Goderich. It's on 400. If you have it in your municipality, I would strongly recommend that you put it on your list with Phragmites to deal with this plant as well. Anyway, that's my Coles Notes version for Phragmites. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure I threw a lot of information at you very quickly. Sorry about that.
That's not a problem, Dr. Gilbert. Thank you so much. It's very hard to take all your years of experience and everything that you have to teach us and put it into just a few minutes. So we really do appreciate that. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Davidson?
Thank you, Worship. I think the big concern, Doctor, that we were dealing with is that the contracting group that was doing it happened to rain a couple hours later when this chemical was sprayed, Roundup was sprayed into the ditches and impacting the drinking water. I know Europe has some very, very strong environmental regulations regarding impacting drinking water. I'm wondering whether our rules are as strong and whether the concerns of this new Habitat Weather Max product, even though it does have this, is a glyphosate in it that is connected to Roundup, does it still impact the water? Is the water table water wells in the area protected with this chemical?
No, that's an excellent question. So the product used, actually, we use it in wetland systems as well. The exact same problem where it's drying, and it dries with very quickly on the plants. Like within 20 minutes, half an hour, it's dry. So it's not going anywhere. It's developed actually to be safe within an hour of rain. So that being said, if it happens to get onto the soil, it binds really fast. It's not a mobile active ingredient, and it's not considered to be. There's no issues for drinking water. Absolutely not. If you've got your proper filters on, you're not getting any sediment in your drinking water, which you shouldn't be. You're not going to be getting this product, and it's bound to the sediment particles anyway. So if you drink the sediment, it's going to go right through your body and out. So that's not a problem. You mentioned the glyphosate. I know there are concerns about that. I do not shy away from those questions. I give a lot of presentations, and if the questions aren't asked, I bring it out. It has now been listed by the World Health Organization as a probable carcinogen. So the risk is to the applicator, not to the general public. At a greater risk, if you go to the World Health Organization, at a greater risk to us, at a higher risk, is processed meats, things we eat every day. Bacon, ham, luncheon meat, hot dogs. So that's putting it into context, okay? So the general public is not at risk when we're using these products out in the landscape. The wildlife are not at risk.
Okay.
So yeah, and otherwise I wouldn't be using this product or advocating its use, particularly in sensitive habitats. And again, I'll direct you to what's going on in Long Point, Lake Erie with Nature Conservancy Canada, heading up this project with Roundup Custom, which is just glyphosate. And they're applying it into the wetlands using helicopters and ground application. And there's a lot of research that happened independent out of the University of Waterloo by Rebecca Rooney, not one red flag, period. Water, sediment, and through the food chain. So there's a lot of really good information out there, a lot of really good, strong results using this product safely and responsibly. And you've got with Greenstream, Steve actually is one of my business partners for a reason. He has an excellent reputation and he does not skirt the rules. There are some contractors out there that will, but Steve is not one of them.
Follow up, Your Worship.
Just if I could just interrupt for one moment and ask Mr. Ford if he wanted to turn his camera on. Mr. Ford is with, I'm sorry, Greenstream?
Yeah, Greenstream Vegetation Management. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the person who's applying, it's your company that we've contracted with, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And your follow-up, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm glad to meet you, Mr. Ford. So when you're doing it in the town, I think how this was brought to our attention is that it rained shortly after, that there were concerns getting into the water table. Your guys that are going out spraying, and I just noticed quickly in the notes here tonight that it's very important that once they spray or use equipment that they have to clean that equipment off before using it somewhere else, because this Phragmites, it spreads pretty rapidly and pretty fast. The concern is not mine so much, but as the constituents, that is the protocol being followed 100%? And are you using the latest technologies and chemicals when you're doing it for the town of Innisfil?
May I, Your Honor, through Your Honor. Yeah, great question, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Davidson. So when we're applying the application, it's either through a hose and handgun technique, or we actually have it off the side of a truck. Our trucks generally, I ask that the trucks get cleaned on a regular basis. They're not digging, they're not like uprooting or anything like that. So as far as our equipment, excessively moving seeds or root biomass, we're not digging, we're strictly, applying over top of. So realistically, as far as more of my concern is if I actually had like a side-by-side or a piece of machinery that was driving through and applying. By all means, we have to make sure, and there's transportation rules as well. Like if I were to put a piece of equipment on the road that had mud, we're bound by our commercial vehicle operator's license to actually remove it, because if chunks fly off the road, a DOT officer will pull me over. So we're very astute at making sure that our equipment is as clean as possible. But as far as the application that would have taken place throughout the town of Innisfil, none of it would have been as obscene as getting actually the seed heads on it and transporting in that regard. And I think the fact that we've reduced our herbicide use by about 80% in 4 years kind of shows that we're minimizing the impact of treating Phragmites within your municipality. Don't know if that answered your question or not.
I appreciate it, Your Worship, what his points of view, and I just hope that maybe we can get that message out, what you just said. You've reduced your herbicide use by about 80%, and I think if we can let the constituents know where this, I see it all over Innisfil. I mean, I've been with South Simcoe Streams Network for 14 years, and we see it popping up everywhere. So, and we know the damage it can do to our wetlands. So if you can just, I think maybe we can get some proper messaging out there, maybe signage before we're doing it, letting them know it's coming, and education on the product you're using in the drying time. I think that would help put a lot of questions at ease. So I do appreciate your input. Thank you.
Councillor Orsatti?
Thank you, Your Worship. I read the item G4, the correspondence from Mr. Scorbahutch and Ms. Gravel, and read, I'm sure like other council members, all the attached correspondence that with the links to the ones that we could. There was one link that didn't allow you unless you were a member. So Deputy Mayor has handled a lot of the concerns, but from my understanding, just to assist me, I was surprised to see that Ministry of Ontario Natural Resources recommends using the glyphosate, or I'll just say Roundup, in their chemical management plan. And but it also says about not using this in the presence of people around control sites. And I'm just wondering, in rural residential areas where residents are not connected to our services and they're on their own wells, how does the rule change with those ditches so close to residential wells? And also, I understand that in reading up on all those documents, that with using Roundup, it requires more abundant and multiple treatments. So how many treatments is it going to take to eradicate this? Because some of them are recommending a combination of using a chemical and a mowing or something, one of the other treatments. And I'm just wondering, how are, because it's not in the residential urban areas of the town, but more the rural. So I just wonder on the use in ditches around homes with residential wells and the multiple treatments, and I just, how we are handling that. I don't know whether it's Dr. Gilbert or yourself, Mr. Ford, that could help me out with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I could certainly respond to Councillor Orsatti's question. So I guess the way that I personally look at it, a roadside environment, regardless of being rural or in town, is a public work environment. So a ditch that we are trying to control Phragmites in, generally they're like, 4 or 5, let's say 5 feet off the road. I would imagine that a well system of a residential home is probably not, like, you probably don't, there's probably, I would imagine, a bylaw for the town to have a well fairly close to roads, because roads in general have oil, salt, sand. Like, it's kind of a, to be honest, a road ditch is a vulgar environment at the best of times, just where it is. So I think that the amount of product, as I've mentioned, the amount of reduction that we've had and what we're actually putting down in the grand scheme of things, and not being subjective or just making a bold statement, it's quite minimal, the amount of active ingredient. Like, say we sprayed 10 liters in front of a constituent's home, there's probably 1%, 10 liters of the actual active ingredient in it. So the label for Weather Max, as you can all, it's public knowledge, for if you look at the MSDS or the label, there's actually no restriction against spraying close to wells because it binds with soil. It does not move. If I were to open the well distinctively and do something that's definitely not correct, then that is an issue. It does not absorb through the ground. Okay, once it hits the soil or ground, it does not translocate any further. If you sprayed a lawn with Roundup, you could actually seed it the next day and it'll grow. So I think that's, the concerns about Roundup are, they're certainly relevant and in discussion today. But there's so many positive benefits that the MNRF and the Ministry of Transportation, just so you know, Councillor, they've sprayed every single Kings, Queens highway from Leamington to Cornwall. And then I've been personally, my business has done work all the way to Pepis Casing along Highway 11, treating Phragmites. So these are government institutions that, you know, they put a lot of thought and effort, as you do, in you know, risk versus reward and astute. And I can tell you that, you know, we have to have mapping, we have to follow protocols. You know, our goal is to reduce the population, which I believe we actually have succeeded with in Innisfil. You know, as far as the next step, you can do cutting. Cutting is a big part of it. I believe Jeremy had actually wanted us to start attacking stormwater ponds within the Innisfil, getting rid of the frag in those environments. But you know, we did not move ahead with that because of the constituents' concern, and that's going to have to be addressed, because if that is not addressed properly, then what you've been spending your budget, the allocation the last few years is going to be for naught. So I don't know if I answered your question, hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. In doing some research, I understand that it does bind to organic matter. It doesn't move. It doesn't translocate like you had mentioned. But there was some question around when there's standing water or moving water. In ditches, you know, there's always seems to be water, especially this year, considering the amount of rain that we have. The spray binds to the plant, but in terms of overspray, is there any danger in it getting into the water? And once it's there, can it translocate from that spot?
Great question, Councillor Waters. That it's relevant, yes. So when, as a licensed exterminator and have an operator's license in Ontario, and you know, we are fairly regulated. We're also working in about as public an environment as you can imagine, which is kind of the premise of why we're here today. We train our staff as astute as possible to know where they're treating. Their license is important, and you know, no one wants to be the person that pollutes a water course. I guess I'm going to refer back to my statement that a roadside ditch and then a stormwater pond is deemed as a public work. So they are designed to you know, move water, or at least hold it so that it naturally percolates. Because of their environment, where they are, they do harbor a lot of pollutants, such as the road salts, and as I've reiterated. So standing water, and it is up for interpretation. If I have like the frag in the picture of there, or sorry, of the miscanthus or the weed, you know, if I were to step in there and my boot got covered with a mucky, watery substance, I would still treat over top of that, because you can see how dense the mass is there, that the amount that would actually get to it would be discernible. If I had an open flowing water area that could particularly move it, by no means we would just simply drive by and pass that. So there is elements of interpretation to it, but if we don't follow astute rules, I'd like you folks to believe that I'm about as exposed to the public applying these services across the province as possible, and you know, we make sure that our staff are trained and as astute as possible where they're applying.
Follow up, Councillor Waters.
Thank you. So open water is a bit of an issue. What are the dangers associated with the spray getting into open water?
My personal opinion, it's just not where, it's not an environment where you want it to go. Like, it's not a target, so I'm misapplying if you got into it. But if I treated, I got some spray into a water course, I mean, it would dilute 1,000,000 times and actually do nothing, and it would bind with the dirt particulates in the water. So it's just our government, actually another member of council, I believe, brought up the European Union and or maybe it was Mrs. Orsatti. We actually take it to the nth degree of our water course. I mean, Ontario itself is one of the #1 freshwater. Like all you hear about is protecting water, right? So the amount of research that is done or put in place, I believe in government, and I just like you, and I believe if this was an issue, they would say point blank, you cannot spray a roadside ditch because there's a chance of some water. I believe that myself. So I don't know if that answer. So it would just really, it would bind with water into debris or whatever's in the water, and it would just sink. And it's broken down by microorganisms. It's breaking down as soon as it leaves the nozzle of the truck. It's breaking down simply by sunlight, photodegradation, and just the natural process of it. So I have little to no concern. If I had staff that were significantly over apply, it's not supposed to be an open water.
Okay.
So
I guess my question then, when we're talking about stormwater management ponds, which consistently have water in them, is there an issue, like if Phragmites is getting into the stormwater management ponds, how do you deal with that when you're so close to the water that's there?
Great question, Councillor. So what we've done, the good thing about a stormwater ponds is a lot of them, you can pull a plug and they empty, or you can lower the water level, or you can de-water it. We spray to the edge, the water's edge. And then if there's frag growing in the water, we unfortunately just leave it. Or as Dr. Gilbert had mentioned, we have the method of the truckster that cuts and drowns underneath. Or with the new product Habitat that's been released, we've been applying for permits to actually spray into water with Habitat. So it would just be a different course of action. But as of now, we would just treat up to water's edge, sir, or we would de-water and pump the water down. That's why stormwater ponds are okay to deal with, because they're usually a function and that you can remove the water from them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Gilbert, may I ask a question about, you've heard Jeremy say we spend $10,000 a year. I'd like to know how that compares to other municipalities. Should we be doing more? Do you have any recommendations on how to win this battle a little faster, maybe before whenever it was 2033?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's an excellent question. I'll just give one example. Municipality Kincardine. Been working with them for a number of years now. The focus was the shoreline. I showed you that photo early on where it was just thick frag and somebody frowning. That was their shoreline, 19 kilometers. So every year they passed, this was Mayor Ann Eady Council, they passed $30,000 budget. It's gonna stay there to deal with frag. The focus was the shoreline because it was had the most impact on tourism and the homeowners and cottagers. We just this year, this a few weeks ago, finished the last embayment, cleaning that up. It's absolutely exciting, so exciting. So what we've been doing every year is assess what needs to be done, putting recommendations in, and then getting the work done for them for $30,000 a year. So we've gone in the last few years up into land. We've dealt with the roads on private land. We're just dealing with wherever, and there's local volunteers that tell us where it is along trails. And so we're working with the Spring Valley Conservation Authority to deal with it. So it's not just focused on one area like the roads, but everywhere. And a success story that has actually been able to achieve a total eradication is the city of St. Thomas, where the town council, and they had a Phragmites working group, and they just dealt with it everywhere. And they were able to eradicate it within the confines of that community. And we're working with City of London, much bigger footprint, much bigger area. So it just depends. Windsor again is huge. Where do you start? But for you guys, I think that's something you might want to look at, and just a systematic approach again. But there's certainly lots of examples. And I mentioned that Green Shovels initiative. There will be some funding coming from municipalities to help as well. So if you have a plan in place, if you're already doing the work, I think you're really well suited. You have a great success story already with the reduction of the frag along the roads. That's fantastic. And so you are very well positioned to get some support, I think.
Thank you, Doctor. Councillor Ices?
Thank you, Worship. So a question for Mr. Ford. Before I ask the question, I do want to thank you for the information you've provided. I do have quite a bit of familiarity with glyphosate, being a farmer. So I'm excited to hear how we can use technology to help control invasive species, and really excited to hear that there is a new product that in the event that some of the chemical gets into the water, that it's actually on the label, and it's so that it's been proven safe. Is that new formulation available for use right away, or is it in trials, or is it will you be switching everything over to the new formulation of glyphosate?
Thank you, Councillor Isis, for your questions and your comments. So it's Habitat is made by BASF. It's I can go and buy it tomorrow. But the process, there is a process to it. We have to apply for a permit. So it's actually there's a lot to it. We have to have an area topographical view, measurements. A ministry officer may take a visit to the site to see if it constitutes, whether it's justified. So you do need a permit to apply it, but we could start applying for a permit now. I don't know if we'd get one. There seem to be taking some time. The product is excessively expensive, of course, but I myself have purchased a couple of cases of it. We've just got a permit to apply it at University of Waterloo property, Spongy Bog area. So it's definitely in the process, and Jeremy and I have been communicating. He's well aware of the process, and for stormwater ponds, I think it will be a pretty astute thing. So it is available now, Council. It's just there is a process of applying for a permit and before applying it.
Follow up. So no, it's great to hear that you have another tool in your toolkit when we are dealing with this invasive species. And so I did want to take maybe a moment here just to maybe address the letter that was sent by the constituents to us, and Councillor Sadi mentioned some of the information that was put in there for us to get informed on. And as somebody who uses the product all the time and knows how much goes into bringing these products safely to market, I guess I was didn't think it was a very balanced information that was given us. The organizations that were quoted there, the Sierra Club and the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, are not science-based organizations. They're activists that are anti-technology, I would call them. So I know that's not what we're talking about here specifically, and I'm really glad that that Mr. Ford and Ms. Gilbert could enlighten us on how technology is being used. The Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, their claim to fame was eliminating cosmetic pesticides in Ontario, even though all of those products had been properly vetted through Health Canada, and the safety of them was never proven to be in doubt. But being a lobby group, an effective lobby group, they were able to do that in this province. So just a little bit of a concern about where those that information came from. I wanted to bring that up in our discussion. I'm sure you Steve, you've done a good job of explaining how these tools help us with these things. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Orsatti?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one, I think before when we had a presentation, or maybe it was after the delegation in regards to the Phragmites in Innisfil, that there was going to be an inquiry as to what products the County of Simcoe was using. I just wonder, are they using the same Roundup chemical process for dealing with Phragmites throughout Simcoe County? And just also because I just read recently, can't remember where it popped up, but Simcoe County receives designation as a bee city. And, you know, one of the things that everybody's always concerned with is the honey support of the pollinating, you know, plants and protection of our honeybees. And I was happy to see Dr. Gilbert, you're showing that slide of a milkweed and how it is not harmful, you know, because as we want to, you know, promote communities to be more eco-friendly and support these pollinators, it's important, I think, to have that information, whether it is harmful. And so just ending with my question, does anyone know what the County of Simcoe is using? Thank you.
So Mr. Ninehouse, do you have that information? Or I don't know, Mr. Ford, if you do work for the county?
I am fortunate enough to do some work for the county through their weed inspector, Brent Price. And he's a bylaw officer. Phragmites, I have not done anything for the county this year. But Jared, I believe we had in the historically the last few years, Jeremy, you can correct me, that we have treated, they use Roundup. They use the same product, sorry, Counsel, they use the same product that we would, yes. Roundup Weathermax or one of the labeled products for common reed, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? So I just really want to thank you for being here. It is very helpful to get this advice and knowledge. So thank you, Dr. Gilbert, Mr. Ford, and Mr. Ninehouse for this information.
You're welcome.
And I have a recommendation now. The recommendation is for it to be received. Do we want any action taken on this? Do we want Deputy Mayor Davidson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to see us look at the possibility of increasing our budget to maybe include this Weathermax or the habitat in necessary areas, because Innisfil has so many wetlands that we really need to concern this shores of Lake Simcoe. So if we can receive this information and leave it with staff to come back with a proposal for an increase in the budget.
So we've already passed our budget, but we will be doing a reset, Ms. Bowman.
There we go, mute button was stuck. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, we'd be happy to bring back a new budget. Would suggest that we time that with the next budget cycle. We'll also have a look at the Green Shovels program and see what opportunities we might have to align with some grant funding. It's good for us to understand council's will and your degree of support for how we've been treating Phragmites and how if you would like to see us bring forward increased measures through a proposal in the next budget. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. So that would be moved by Deputy Mayor Davidson and seconded by Councillor Nicol. And yes, we can't ignore it. I think that turning a blind eye to this problem is only going to make it worse, and look forward to looking for what we can do to enhance our to support what we're currently doing, but also to enhance our actions going forward. And seeing no more hands, I'll ask all in favor. And those opposed? That is carried. Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate you being here this evening. Next on the
Council. Take care.
Thank you. Next, we have item 5.3, which is a presentation by Ms. Webb regarding a petition. Sorry, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry to interrupt. Prior to the presentation, we had brought forward the community fridge project resolution. I don't think council had voted on that. If you still want to do that now, perhaps it would be a good time to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Park. And yeah, when I take things out of order, you never know what's going to happen. So I'd be looking again for a mover and a seconder for this program, Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Van Berkel. And I just wanted to say, I think there might have been some technical difficulties when we first started recording this. I don't think we started recording till halfway through the presentation. And so I just wanted to apologize to that for people who were trying to get in, and to let you know that we have renamed our community fridge project in order in honor of Troy Scott. So thank you. All those in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. And I'm going to make one comment again out of order, but I noticed on those list of where those fridges were going to be, Stroud wasn't on the list. And I could just hear Troy saying, what about Stroud? So I'll add that comment. And Deputy Clerk Toma, when you turn your camera on, it's because I've done something wrong.
No, not necessarily, Your Worship. Thank you. I just wanted to advise that it's the clerk's recording that typically it automates on, and I'd noticed it wasn't. So that is the clerk's recording. The live stream recording was working perfectly normally, and we will have a recording posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow.
Oh, that's wonderful. When I got that message, I thought maybe that we hadn't been recording. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Now we will go to Ms. Webb and her petition. Is Ms. Webb with us? Oh, yes, I do see her there. Ms. Webb, whenever you're ready, you wanted to present us with a petition. Welcome and good evening. And you're on mute, sorry.
Unmute. Okay, there. My apologies. I'm not on my regular form of communication tonight. So as long as you can hear me and see me.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present these petitions. We've collected over 400 online petitions and 300 in-person signatures in support of this to date. The response from the residents and the constituents has been overwhelmingly positive. I had people lining up waiting to sign, even in COVID times, which I feel speaks volumes. This ongoing issue of safety at the intersection of St. John's and the 7th is well known by everyone in town. And I'm pretty confident that no one currently in attendance to this meeting here in good conscience could deny that. I could go on and on about sight lines and speeding, but I know that you've heard it all before because this issue continues to be brought forth to council. So instead, I thought I would address some of the canned responses that we keep getting whenever this issue is brought forward. So the first being from the South Simcoe Police Services, that there are more dangerous intersections in town. Yes, there are, and I feel very deeply about those as well. But this is in regards to the intersection of St. John's and the 7th. I know our fatalities are not as high as other intersections in our town, which is, we want to keep it that way, which is why we keep bringing this issue forward. Also, that I keep being asked if we've read the 2019 report that was done on this intersection, and we have read it. We're very familiar with it. Honestly, I feel like anyone who has a set of eyes can stand at that intersection at any time of the day, specifically during the summertime, but certainly in the wintertime at dusk, and feel how dangerous and terrifying it is to be a pedestrian in that area. The walkability is non-existent, and I'm very surprised that a company that you paid to do this survey would come up with the conclusion that a stop sign would make it less safe. To me, again, I've read the report, and it seems to indicate that too many stop signs are unsafe, which I can understand. But the fact that we have absolutely no control of traffic from Innisfil Beach Road all the way to the end of St. John's Road, when speaking to the constituents that this is the ideology that's brought forth to say that it's unsafe, it just doesn't make any sense to anyone. We had a traffic survey done in 2021 in June. We were ecstatic because, again, we felt that any survey would obviously indicate that something needed to be done at this intersection, but unfortunately the little strips were placed far too close to the intersection. My understanding is that it wasn't in line with council's recommendation as to where we put those survey points. So it came with a lot of under average speeds because people were turning off of the intersection. And again, it wasn't in line with the council's recommendation when you're doing surveys like that. So I kind of question the validity of both of those reports. Back to the 2019 report, the demographics of this area have changed so much in the past 2 years. I really feel like it would be warranted to relook at the traffic survey. And I'm pretty confident that if we stuck to the guidelines presented by council, that we would be automatically approved for a stop sign in this area. Finally, my favorite scripted response thus far: if everyone wants a stop sign outside of their house, if we give you a stop sign, we'll have to give everyone a stop sign. I think we're all mature enough to understand the difference between needs and wants. And maybe everyone would like to have a stop sign outside of their house. But certainly at this intersection, it's something that's drastically needed. Again, I feel like this issue, everyone in town knows that it's an issue. Everyone that I spoke with who's lived in town, if you haven't had a chance to stand on that corner, please do so, because I can't really believe that anyone who can look at that intersection cannot see that something needs to be done. And I really feel like inaction from council, it's really speaking badly. Like, I understand there are a lot of things in the works and there's a lot going on that you have to consider. But specifically in that neighborhood, we've been looking for improvements on the 7th for years, and St. John's has been an issue for years. And people are really getting sick of the scripted reasons why we can't have action now. At minimum, I would really strongly request a redo of the traffic surveys in this area based on the current traffic levels as opposed to the 2019. I feel like we would be automatically, like it would just be an automatic thing, as well as a redo of the survey that we did this year. I have no idea why it was placed so close to that stop sign. Again, council's own recommendations recommend that it's placed further away from the stop sign. So I'm not sure whether it was on purpose that it was put in an inadequate location, or whether it was gross negligence. But regardless, this spring, I would really like to see a proper survey done at that intersection. So I'm confident if we do that it will be a non-issue, and it will just, based on your own recommendations, I think that moving forward, that would be what we should do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Any questions or comments? Councillor Orsatti?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Webb, for your passionate plea and the work that you've done to, having people sign a petition. Council receives many, petitions, but we know that there's a great passion in the community for traffic safety. And it is also, a concern for council, and you've highlighted on some of the things that there's always some background information that makes it always difficult, that we can't always do a yes for all of them. But your item will fall in line to my pulling the traffic safety report for this evening. Councillor Van Berkel and I have amended recommendations that we would like to present to council for approval this evening. And also we'll be able to hear from staff so that all residents who will watch this presentation on YouTube later will be able to hear the information all around. But I want to thank you for that, and clerks have a copy of your survey or petition rather, and that will be included. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have two quick comments, comment and a question actually. One of them is in regards to where the traffic counters are placed, and there is a policy in place to do that. Council doesn't tell staff where on the street that the traffic count should be, but we do have a policy in place to do that. But I also have to tell you that every time we get results back that do not meet the expectations of the person who asked for them, we get that same answer.
Okay, so and as far as how many meters from the intersection, what is the standard for council?
So it's not a standard of council. It's a policy, and I'll ask well, you know what? Instead of getting into that debate now, we'll wait until we're pulling the item.
Okay.
But I just have one quick question for you. So let's say we did the survey, or we hired another professional engineer who did a traffic study on that intersection this summer, and that professional person said it doesn't warrant a four-way stop. Would you accept that outcome?
I would be shocked, to be honest with you. Again, I think you're kind of implicating there that there isn't a need for one. Every other major intersection in Alcona, as well as Bradford, as well as Barrie, has some sort of control over that intersection. St. John's and the 7th, barring St. John's and the 6th, I can't think of another major intersection that doesn't have a four-way control. Everyone that I speak to regarding this in town seems to indicate that it's something that's long overdue and being addressed. And there's a lot of frustration and confusion as to how this issue has been left to go on as long as it has. I had a lot of people questioning why I was out there pushing this issue when it was such a known thing. Anyone who's tried to turn off of that road can tell you that there needs to be greater control of traffic in that area. But back to your, would I accept that? Sure. Let's do it right though. Do I accept that one stop sign along St. John's is too many? Because that was the results of the 2019 survey. No, I do not feel that one stop sign on St. John's is too many, and I question the logic in that. We would have to see, but I'm very confident we wouldn't even have to get a third party in there if the 2021 survey had been set up in a suitable location. And actually, when we asked for it to be set up, we asked that it not be right beside the intersection, and perhaps it could be closer to Anna Maria, because they just rip right through there all the way down to Innisfil Beach Road. So we specified when we were requesting the survey that it not be adjacent to the intersection, and for whatever reason, it was put less than 500 meters from the stop sign. So you were getting all of these low numbers that were people who were obviously turning left off of the 7th, and it skewed the percentage. And again, I question, like, was that on purpose? Was that, it just seems odd to me that it wasn't to the standard that we're meant to follow when conducting the surveys.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. We'll, if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to, and we'll be, I'm sure Councillor Arsati will be pulling that later, and we'll have a fulsome debate around it. So thank you for your
really
presentation.
appreciate. No, thank you so very much. I sincerely appreciate it, and thank you to everybody for their support.
Thank you. All right, so that's the end of our presentations for this evening. Delegations. Oh, sorry, we have a mover and a seconder to receive the petition. Councillor Fowler, Councillor Arsati, all those in favor? That is carried. And next we'll go on to delegations, but we do have no delegations this evening. So next is item number 7. That's report outs from various committees and boards that council members sit on behalf of the residents of Innisfil. The first one is County Council, and I'll call on the Deputy Mayor to give us an update from County Council.
Sorry, Your Worship, I was absent from the County Council meeting, so I'll let you take it from there, okay?
You were at the meeting yesterday, Deputy Mayor?
Oh, yesterday, so I'm thinking last week's meeting, I'm sorry. They're all blending into each other with Zoom. I'm nothing at this time to update on. I think we'll deal with more on the, is it the 23rd of October? I think that'll be the meeting at 1 p.m. regarding our solutions for our waste. At this time, we'll leave it for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll just add that it was, I think it's the 26th of October, which is our next County Council meeting. It's a Tuesday afternoon. County Council will be having a workshop on the any tweaks we can do to the new garbage program that's rolling out on November the 1st. Some people are very angry and do not like the bins, and some people love them, but the angry ones are many people looking to downsize them for a smaller size. So that's one of the issues we're going to be looking at when we meet on the 26th. And the only other thing from county was we did have President Dr. Mary Lynn Westmoynes come and do a presentation from Georgian College regarding the economic impact analysis of what the college and the community spends, creating jobs and the students, international students as well. But what struck me is one number that struck me was 49% of the alumni actually end up settling here. So we do end up, when people do come to the college, they stay. And then finally, the degree in nursing that the college just got approved, both here and at the Owen Sound campus, are both very valuable for the future and for creating good nurses in our area. Anyone else have a committee? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Not regarding committee, but maybe something else that I've been informed is going on at the county. A representative from the Ministry of Agriculture, our federation, contacted me to be aware that there are, I think there's some information meetings going on about the MCR process, the municipal county review ongoing. I believe next, I don't have the dates in front of me, but weekly they're going over different aspects of of our county to see how we're planning for the next 20 years or 30 years rather of growth. I think the agriculture one is next week.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ices. Yeah, there's 2 full days of technical briefings, and you're right, agriculture is on that list. Thanks for reminding me. Anyone else with a report from a committee or board? Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I neglected to do an update from in-service from the last meeting. I should have done that the last meeting. So I'm sure that some of the councillors have been getting calls because of the septic haulers been complaining that we are going to closing down our septic receiving dock for the next couple of years, starting in January. And it's probably going to cost everybody that has septic systems more money, because for one reason is that, you know, the people here, they're going to have to go farther to get rid of it. The other reason is that we've only been charging half of what everybody else has been charging. And I think that's one of the biggest beefs of these people. You know, we've been charging roughly $18 a cubic meter, and Aurora, Aurelia, and everybody else has been charging well over $30 a cubic meter. So we are still looking into what we can do and what we can't do. We're definitely going to have to go up and, you know, and price-wise in line with everybody else. Will it, if we build something separate, will it cover the cost over the next 2 years? We don't know. We're looking into that. And how easy is that? So despite of what you heard, we're still looking into it. In-services is still looking into it. I'm sure that, you know, when our new CIO comes on board, he's going to be informed, and maybe he comes up with an idea. I don't know. But right now, as it stands, our septic receiving docks will be closed as of January. And it's not for a month or 2, it's for a couple of years while we redo the sewage plant.
Thank you for that update, Councillor. And I was also remiss. I sit on that board as well, so it's on me as well.
I apologize, Your Worship. I should have brought that up earlier.
No, we discussed it over the phone and decided we need to be better at communicating with Council as to what comes out of that board. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll turn to staff and the Emergency Operations Center update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, as of October 7th, we had 131 active cases in Simcoe Muskoka. 86 of those are active variant cases. Of 19 recent cases reported on October 6th, 89.5% are unvaccinated. The COVID-19 Immunization Center at 29 Sperling Drive in Barrie will continue to provide walk-in vaccinations on Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays until the end of November. Information about clinic times is available on the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit's website. Vaccines are also available through participating pharmacies, the Barrie Family Health Team, some healthcare providers, pop-up clinics, and limited appointments are available at our local health unit offices, or sorry, at SMDHU's local health unit offices. I'm happy to share that 80.1% of Simcoe Muskoka residents aged 12 plus are fully vaccinated. With proof of vaccination required for access to non-essential buildings and settings, we have updated our return to play protocols for applicable town facilities and programs. Details can be found at innisfil.ca/COVID-19. Late last week, the province amended OREG 364/20, permitting larger spectator capacities at recreational facilities. Town staff are evaluating the impact to our current spectator limits at our own local arenas. Finally, the town's CDSB staff participated in another successful education and enforcement campaign initiated by the province, along with our partners at SMDHU and South Simcoe Police. Over 45 restaurants and other facilities were visited as part of the campaign late last week, with an overwhelming proportion of our local restaurants found to be in compliance with the province's new proof of vaccination requirements. Thank you to our CDSB staff and our local partners who continue to work tirelessly throughout this pandemic to ensure that our local businesses and our citizens are safe.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ray. And for those who may not know, the CDSB is bylaw. And any questions, or anyone else have anything else to report? I was remiss. I did not report out on Police Services Board. We're going to get the first look at the budget next week. And also September 23 and 24 were AMO board meetings. A ton of policy work going on right now, trying to get that cleaned up before the next provincial election. And also AMO's working on through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, working on putting out a program called We All Win campaign. And it's a campaign to try to diversify the voices on council. So it's not just about gender equity, but also trying to get people who are underrepresented to run for local councils. So you'll see more work on that coming up during Local Government Week. I'm also speaking at a conference for Elect Her Now up in Collingwood. And the slogan is, when the most accountable level of government, it should be that We All Win campaign is when the most accountable level of government gets more accountable. And I'm sorry for my phone ringing. So next we'll move into the consent agenda list. And I would ask if anybody, when we go through the list, if you want to pull any item that you're interested in debating or discussing further. Item A1, special council meeting minutes from September 15th. A2, special council meeting minutes from September 22. A3, the council meeting minutes dated September 22. B1, the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. I'd like to pull that one if somebody would pull it for me. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. B2, the School Zone Traffic Safety Advisory Committee meeting. Councillor Arsati's pulling that. And then staff reports for action. The community fridge we already did. The Meadows of Stroud Park update. Deputy Mayor Davidson, you want to pull that? C3, the Alcona Capital Properties part lot control exemption. C4, the municipal election voting methods. Councillor Van Berkel, you want to pull that?
No, I don't want to pull it, Your Worship. I just have a question. I read the report and I agree with the report. Is there, addition to the report I didn't see, is there any place at all where there would be conventional voting in Innisfil? Like, you know, there are some people that want to do it.
Okay, why don't we pull it, Councillor Van Berkel?
All right, C4, yeah, okay.
Further discussion. C5, Scrooge the Ticket 2021. I just want to commend our folks at CDSB for doing that again this year. NC6, that was the Park Road. Councillor Davidson?
I'd just like to make a statement that when we're doing this, can staff connect with South Central Streams Network, because they have done planting in the park in the previous years, and unfortunately, and it was by accident, staff took those trees down. So let's make sure that when we're doing this project, we reach out to them. And I also know that one of our employees is reaching out to them currently, and they could help. They have a lot of trees that they get donated and can put in that area for free for, and they're, what's the correct word? Indigenous to that area. So we want to make sure we plant the right type of trees on that new beach park where the bridge is being done, that we do it properly. So if they could reach out to Sylvia at South Central Streams Network, that'd be great to save some cost in that area. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
And just a comment, I don't need to pull it, but in that report, it talks about a trail, an asphalt trail, and I wouldn't mind staff looking at an alternative to asphalt. We keep talking about sustainability, but we keep on making bad choices. So just thought I would mention that. Thank you.
Okay, I think maybe we better pull it then because you might want to change the recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and then staff reports for informations. Bylaw, our one bylaw to say goodbye to Mr. McCallum. I did, Deputy Chief McCallum, I did reach out to him on his last day of work, and it was a bittersweet day, but he really is looking forward to his retirement. There's no correspondence for action, correspondence for information. There are 4 items. Does anyone want to pull any of those items? Deputy Mayor Davidson?
Just like to make the public aware that item G3, RBC Race for Kids, that we raised the flag this past week in the support of mental health. Yourself and Bill and Brooklyn, other councillors who are there, Don Arsati, that we'll do our part to bring mental awareness to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I just want to highlight the letter from Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit to Tammy Botham. Tammy worked so hard in the mass vaccination clinics, and I'm hearing nothing but wonderful things about the staff at Innisfil from the SMDHU. So thank you to Tammy. And next is the consent list continued. And there are the items, if we've got everybody covered there. Could I have a mover and a seconder to pull those items? And that's moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Nickel. All those in favor? That is carried. And next is to resolve into committee of the whole. And that is moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? That is carried. So the recommendation is that the reports, sorry, that was me. I pulled that one, or someone pulled it for me. Councillor Nickel. Yes, so I just wanted to highlight that there was some conversation in the meeting. Councillor Payne, I'll address it to you as chair, that, and I need a seconder, sorry, Councillor Deputy Mayor Davidson. There was a report that the Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee, who have issues with the carts, the not being accessible, they want to come to council and do a deputation. And I love hearing from our Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee, so they can come anytime. But I thought that it would be more effective to meet with the Simcoe County Accessibility Advisory Committee, which might have more clout with Simcoe County as a whole. You know, there's 32 members of Simcoe County, and the deputy mayor and I get 2 votes out of those 32, and suggest that maybe partnering or speaking to the Simcoe County Accessibility Advisory Committee, who I think have been involved in this from the get-go, it'd be a good place for them to start. But again, not discouraging them from coming to see us. I just thought maybe that would be another avenue. So, and I'll just make those comments to Councillor Payton, who is the chair of that committee, and I don't need to change the recommendation. Anyone else have any comments? Councillor Payne?
I want to thank you for bringing that up. It went right past me, and I apologize for that. We do have a few members on the committee that do have major issues with the size, and if something can be done, that's going to be great. So we look forward to getting the information that we can get from Simcoe County. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. And you can let your committee also know that the October 26th workshop with County Council, when we're just dealing with the new card system, will be live streamed. So you can watch that online if you're interested in doing so.
Thank you.
Thanks. All in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. Next is item B2, and that was Councillor Arsati.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to pull this item and speak on, pull the traffic safety report and item 6.2 in the report, which deals with the intersection of St. John's and the 7th line. Both Councillor Van Berkel, Your Worship, and myself, we all sit on the Traffic Safety Committee. You know, anybody who knows me knows that I've been trying to advocate for lights or four-way stop at this intersection for quite some time. And but I wanted to pull this because, you know, what we want to address is that we want to make this intersection safer. And, you know, residents, as Ms. Webb had even indicated today, that the concerns are speeding, pedestrian safety, and sight lines. And, you know, there's measures that we can put in place this evening to make this intersection safer. Councillor Van Berkel and I have 5 recommendations through an amended motion for this evening to put some safety measures in place to be approved by council, to be acted upon immediately. And I'd like to sort of, so we have a starting point of what this, what these recommendations are for a conversation this evening. I'd like to, yes, the clerks have got this up. I'm just looking at this now. And if I could just, Your Worship, read this. And then what I'd also like to do is after this is to ask staff members to explain what it would mean if we installed a four-way stop or signalized stop at this intersection and why it has not been recommended. And then if we can go into a discussion on these amended items, if that procedure is okay with you.
Yeah, if you want to read the motion and then say what you want to say, and then I'll call on staff.
Thank you very much. So our recommendations are that one, that the additional road signage be implemented at St. John's Road in the 7th line to advise drivers of the intersection ahead. So this is signage because for many, it brings awareness to a hidden intersection. That a letter issuing speed camera be installed to capture and document traffic volumes at this intersection. And I'm going to refer, I'm not sure if Sergeant Phillips is here. I'm going to ask for the actual phrasing of these cameras. I thought I had it down here and I just don't think that's the right one. What this is they're cameras that document vehicles going through an intersection or speeding. The data is sent to South Simcoe Police, who sends out a warning letter to the residents, and these are mostly our residents. The third one is that a flashing beacon be added to the eastbound 7th line stop sign to give a warning to drivers of the intersection, and to maintain the 4th one, clear sight lines of the 7th line and St. John's Road. And we have additional measures that these measures would all be funded from the traffic safety budget. We have another item that will be added to traffic safety agenda in the future, and that will be dealing with the pedestrian safety and looking at possible solutions for where we could look at the placement of those. But the 5 amended recommendations that we have for this evening are in front of us here. But I'd also like to have, you know, Carolina, Nicole Bowman, and Sergeant Phillips give some input as well.
Thank you. First, I'll go to members of council if there's other questions or comments. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just some comments. As you heard tonight from the lady that did the presentation, there was a survey done, and we did have engineers looking at this intersection. And one of the big problems, I think, is for the last few years, they've been saying that they were going to overhaul the 7th line, and that hasn't really been done. So people are anxious to see this work happening, which hasn't happened. But I can understand what Sergeant Phillips and what the traffic engineers that did the original report, what they're saying about stop signs. And I know I've heard the argument, there's no stop signs from, you know, Alcona till Belleward on St. John's Maple Road. And this is very true. It's a racetrack. How do we stop that? Like Sergeant Phillips said, the sight lines on St. John's, those curves are not like, I've gone up and looked at that 3 or 4 times, and I can see stop signs, an accident waiting to be happen, because right at the curve, you put a stop sign, somebody comes, you know, doing 50 kilometers an hour and doesn't realize there's a stop sign, is going to run into the back of the car that is at the stop sign. So there are some issues there, but I'm sure there are, you know, ways of fixing it. And I see that Sergeant Phillips is here now, by posting more signage, by maybe having a light on this signage, you know, to warn people. The cameras, if we have them, absolutely, I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of that because the list of residents, the complaints is getting longer and longer and longer. I mean, they've started at least 3 years ago when I got on council again, and they haven't stopped. So there is a problem there. There's a problem there that we have to look at. I agree with some of the reports and I disagree with some of the reports, because there are ways of you know, traffic safety, traffic control there, even though it isn't through a stop sign. And I really think that some of these recommendations that Councillor Sadi brought up here are the right ones. And without putting stop signs there at the time being, whether it's, you know, a flashing red light saying, you know, there's a curve coming up and hidden intersection, whether it's chevrons on the road, I don't know. But there has to be something that we can do with that, because it just continues coming up at the safety committee. It continues coming up from residents, complaints. And, you know, I feel that it is a responsibility to do something there before something really bad happens. And that's why I'm working with Councillor Asadi on this, and because I'm on the traffic committee.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. I'm going to call on Staff Sergeant Phillips first, if that's all right, and then we'll talk about more of the issues surrounding the intersection, and then maybe go to engineering. Thank you for being here, Staff Sergeant Phillips.
No problem. Thank you for having me. So I'm a member of the traffic committee as well, and I have heard of this issue several times. And but what I have the unique ability in some staff, and again as members of council you do as well, is we often hear from residents about concerns in their direct neighborhood. It's a common thing. About just about all of my correspondence that I receive, you know, share 1 or 2 lines in common, and it's often what's it going to take? Is it going to take a death here to change things? You know, nowadays with limited budgets and stuff, we like to move to what we call evidence-based policing. We want to make sure our police officers are at the right place at the right time. And with that, I pulled some data, and I pulled 5 years worth of data. So the town of Innisfil in 5 years has seen 3,021 collisions. Compare that to Bradford at 3,098. So both municipalities have a very similar amount of collisions. Innisfil in that past 5 years has seen 5 fatal collisions, Bradford 18. Since we're here talking about Innisfil, I'll go a little deeper into the Innisfil stats. In the past 5 years, we've had 392 injury-related MVCs or collisions. Now, an injury-related collision could be as simple as someone being treated by paramedics. It's not necessarily something that requires a hospital stay or a trip down in an air ambulance to Toronto. The remaining number of those collisions, so 2,622, are property damage only or non-reportable, so damage less than $2,000. Because the way our system works, I can't necessarily pull direct collisions at that intersection without going through them one by one, but I've done that now. So taking St. John's Road as a whole, we see 19 PD, so property damage collisions, and 6 personal injury collisions. So basically we're talking about 0.0082% of our collisions are taking place on St. John's Road. When I break it down to the 5 collisions that we have on record for St. John's and the 7th line, that number reduces to 0.00165% of all collisions in Innisfil are taking place at that intersection. I stand by my words before that we have other intersections that are more of a priority. My concerns remain about placing a stop sign with limited sight lines. The last thing I want to see is someone with a perception that they're going to be safe when they pull out, and we have another vehicle that misses that stop sign. Side impact collisions are some of our highest severity collisions. That's why intersections continue to be an important thing to review, and we've done that. We've engaged with 2 engineering studies. Now, these are engineers that are professionals. Their liability rides on their opinion and their design. Both times they've come back and came back with a similar conclusion that a stop sign is not warranted. We have other roads that have lengthy roads without stop sign. Think of 10 side road from Innisfil Beach Road to County Road 89. We've also got 5 side road from Barrie, basically just the south side of Barrie all the way to Innisfil Beach Road. Then it continues unabated to 89 as well. Highway 27, the same thing. And we have, 7th, 8th, 9th, all these lines running through those major roadways that have a far higher level of traffic. And when I go over the fatals that we do, that's where I'm having them. I'm having them out on these rural roads, 10 side road, 5 side road, Highway 27, where we have high speeds. Looking into the speed reporting, and I can understand, I've had the same questions, and I brought that up at the first time this came up with Ms. Webb. I brought that up that, I don't always hold all of my focus on some of these speed reports. Now, regardless of where the strips are placed, it's very easy to eliminate the bottom percentage of that data where cars are traveling less than 30 kilometers an hour. If we're worried about cars turning left, right, or accelerating from a stop, we can eliminate that stuff. So I don't look at averages. What I've looked at here on a radar speed sign to the north of this location, we have 25,000 contacts on that radar sign. Just a little over 2% are traveling 11 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. These aren't, we have far worse roadways that have a far higher speeding rate than this intersection here. I've been on record saying that this intersection is a dated intersection, that the design is dated. However, I would support the redevelopment of this intersection, and I know that these things take time. This is going to be the acquisition of private lands to straighten this intersection out. But one thing I have noticed, and traffic engineers are beginning to realize this, is that as we make these new subdivisions, we make them 4 lanes wide, nice wide open, nice straight roads, with the intention of making sure traffic flows efficiently, which on the same time is quickly. In the case here of St. John's, having those 2 curves coming into that intersection from either the north or the south, we have environmental design in place, which actually slows vehicles down. This may lead to why we have really an underwhelming amount of collisions at this intersection, because drivers are actually more engaged in their driving when they're coming into this intersection. Some of my my talking points from the last meeting were I do support signage. I do support anything that raises the visibility of this intersection to other motorists. You know, in the last 5 years, I've gone to 25 fatal collisions. I'm the one that goes to these things when people are hurt. And, you know, I don't need to go to any more if I can avoid it. And that's what we all work together to do. We don't want to see our residents hurt. We don't want to see our youth hurt. So we have to be careful how we get caught up in perception over reality, in my opinion. Again, I think I've spoken on the speed reporting concerns, and it's something that I share. Again, I don't just take, you know, we don't place these rumble strips close to artificially lower a speed. We're looking at the people that are speeding. We're not interested in the ones that are doing less than the speed limit, because they're either following the rules or not part of the problem. I did, after the first request at the traffic committee council, I did ask Alex to engage the vendor with the speed warning camera to see about placing it at this intersection so we could get some unbiased data. And again, you know, what I've found excellent results down in Bradford with it, where it's identified sometimes, you know, 1 or 2 bad actors out of hundreds of cars. Just in wrapping up, you know, the key takeaways, I think, and from us is just that perception's not always reality, and people are very passionate about things that are directly in front of their house. Think of what a house costs nowadays. You know, $1 million is not out of line in Innisfil. What does it take to maintain $1 million house? I mean, people are working very hard day and night to pay the bills to survive, and I don't blame them for being passionate about how they feel about their neighborhood. In fact, anyone that knows me, I often speak about community and the lack of community, and how I think we need to build community to help us solve a lot of these problems or perceptions. Where if we all knew each other, maybe we'd be all a little more kind to each other. You know, we can't ignore the data with less than not even 0.1% of our collisions are taking place on St. John's. I think we need to focus time and energy in a group like this with how we can tackle some of these higher volatile intersections and roadways. How are we going to reduce death and injury on those roadways? I think to see council engage in 2 separate engineering reports on 1 intersection, I've never seen this happen before. And I think we have other areas that we need to focus on as well. Again, reducing the brushing that's taken place in the last 6 weeks. We are making improvements at this intersection, and any improvement is obviously a positive. It's helping people see, it's helping people interact with traffic. And again, the speed measuring stuff, we've reviewed that, and we find that it's not one of the fastest streets. There's been 0 fatalities there. The one serious collision that I investigated in the last 18 years there was a intoxicated male who had taken a motorcycle without authorization, without a motorcycle license, and had lost control and struck a sign. Nothing to do with the intersection, but it just happened to take place there. I'm not saying that we can't have a crash there. We can have a crash on any road. That happens every day for us. We see collisions all over Innisfil and Bradford. But where we don't, you know, we're looking at 1 collision a year here. So I think that it takes some reflection to see how we can improve. But I don't support the stop signs. I'm in agreement with the engineer at this point that I would be concerned about the liability if we do install stop signs and they do lead to something. Do we have to answer to that in the future? That we've gone against people that are professionals. These are engineering professionals. They do intersection design, roadway design every day. They know far more about what goes into planning a roadway than I do. And I credit them with making that tough choice of saying that, you know, they don't recommend a stop sign, because at the end of the day, it's their opinion that they become liable for. Any questions?
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Phillips. I don't envy you or your job. You know, particularly when you have to go knock on someone's door and tell them that their loved one isn't coming home. But I thank you for your expertise and for caring so passionately. Councillor Van Berkel.
I want to thank Sergeant Phillips first of all, and I agree with no stop signs, but I do think we can improve it with signage and other things. I mean, it's not only the 7-line intersection, you know, St. John's runs into Maple Road. I live in 1296 Maple Road, and last Friday night, there's somebody wound up in, you know, 2 big cedar trees that they knocked off. So it's happening all over. I think in a lot of places, all along from Alcona right down to Ewart Street, there's a lot of curves and bends in that road. And maybe, you know, a little bit more signage doesn't hurt. But particularly, we're talking about the 7-line there, you know, and it's, you know, I agree with the reports as well, but it's the concerned people that are concerned about their kids walking there and everything else. I think that's who we have to please, like not with stop signs, but with signage to make it, you know, more visible to the traffic, saying there's a hidden intersection there. And I think that's all we're really asking for.
And I think I have, you know, I fully supported that in the past. Is that
I know you have.
Is that anything that upgrades and makes the driver more aware, and it's not the locals that maybe are necessarily the ones that we're concerned about, but I don't want, you know, someone here on an Airbnb or someone here cottaging to be unaware of that intersection. Obviously, I don't want to see anyone hit. That's the last thing I want to see happen.
Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Worship, and Sergeant Phillips. I really appreciate your passion there. I think one of the key wording that we're missing in all of this is we really want to make this a traffic calming zone. I think that's a word we've used. I'm going to go back. They built 15 years ago. We had it out here on Big Bay Point, 30th Side Road. We couldn't get a stop sign put in. Went through. It was different then a little bit too. But it's basically we're looking at traffic calming measures. And I think if we implement what Councillor Sadi and Councillor Van Berkel have put forward and let it be known that it is a traffic calming area, maybe it's a start in the right direction, that maybe some of the residents will, we keep using that word over and over again. Maybe some of the residents who live there, like you said, got to know each other. They might respect each other a little bit better and realize it's nobody from another neighborhood. It's your own neighborhood doing it. So let's get maybe with traffic calming zone clauses in there and let's see where we can go.
Councillor Sadi.
Sorry. Thank you, Sergeant Phillips, for an explanation from a policing side of your view and for the service that you provide to our community in traffic safety. I know that members of the Traffic Safety Committee, we were very excited about your sharing this speed warning camera with the committee. In fact, the committee approved and council approved our request to spend money on purchasing these. And I remember you telling the committee members how successful this was in changing the speeding in areas in Bradford. And as we know, those that are speeding are our own residents. And when you started sending out those, when that data went to the South Simcoe Police and you started sending out those warning letters, it started to slow down the drivers in those areas because they got that warning. They knew what it would cost them in future and demerits and dollar value. And that's why, you know, we wanted to put this in here for this intersection. And we know that they will be moved in certain times. But this would be a great way, as maybe as our deputy mayor is saying, as a traffic calming measure, because speeding and the concern, speeding always results in safety concerns for our residents. And I think that's probably one of the most valuable items that we have in this recommendation for today is those, you know, sort of caution of beware of hidden intersection, the flashing thing, the speed warning with the letters being issued out. All of this will result in changed paradigm shifts in how our residents use that road. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Carolina, I'm sorry, Ms. Cotillo, if she has any thing to add.
Through your worship, I'm not sure that I have anything to add. Sergeant Phillips did such a great job of outlining everything. I do want to say that, there are consequences to unwarranted stop signs, and that, stop signs do have a purpose, and that purpose is not traffic calming, it is right-of-way control. So stop signs are not good at controlling speed. Things that are good at controlling speed are traffic calming devices. And that's sort of what that initial motion that the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee put forward was intended to address. They were looking at St. John's Road in a more holistic manner for some of those traffic calming elements. So yeah, I really do just want to say that wholeheartedly agree with everything that was said. Multiple studies have been done on this location, including more recently, a hotspot analysis that's been done as part of our transportation master plan. And this was not highlighted as one of the hotspots for danger to vulnerable users like pedestrians and bicyclists. I do suggest everybody go check that out on Get Involved Innisfil. But yeah, repeated studies at this point have shown that, a stop sign is perhaps not what's required here, but other things such as traffic calming, such as additional signage, such as the cameras that were previously mentioned, may be more practical to address the problems that are actually observed, which are not related to right-of-way control.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol?
Your Worship, I appreciate the information from staff and definitely from Officer Phillips as well too. I have no concerns with the recommendation as provided. I just have a question about item B. I'm not quite understanding that a letter issuing speed camera be installed. I don't know if there's a grammatical error there or something that was supposed to be changed there. So I think I get the intent of it, but I don't think that's proper. It's getting what the intent was.
I think it's called a speed warning camera. Maybe we could just have a friendly amendment. So I just wanted to touch on that a bit. I know you've had wonderful success for that in Bradford, and I'm excited to see how it works for us. I'm still advocating with the province for automated speed enforcement for our area, and through AMO, there's they've already got they're looking at a vendor. They've gone out with their RFP to get a vendor to bulk purchase this equipment, because right now, unless you're like the biggest city, like City of Toronto, it's really cost prohibitive at this point because of the processing fees, not the actual cameras themselves, but the cost to process everything, which all has to go through the City of Toronto right now. So, I think in the future, with more traffic calming measures, because when I saw the petition and when I talked to residents who called me that live near that intersection, it wasn't about right of way. It was about speeding, and people think that putting in a four-way stop is going to slow people down. And unfortunately, it doesn't. Well, it might, but they're going to screech to stop and then rev to start. So it is there are ways to calm traffic. I just don't think stop signs are one of them. But I'm not the expert. I'm just mimicking them. Other questions or comments? Councillor Sadi.
Yes, I just wondered if Ms. Carolina could just share, in the Traffic Safety Committee meeting, there's been discussions on the medium-term plan of the reshaping of the 7th line from the 20th to the lake, I believe it is. And I just wonder, that will change, because there's a lot of concerns about the safety going along the 7th, and I believe there was sidewalks and widening and how that would address some of the safety concerns as well. Thank you.
So through you, Your Worship, certainly there are plans to make changes on the 7th. Those who have been involved in this for a while will know that back in 2017, an environmental assessment was completed that looked at that section of the 7th line from the 20th to the lake. That came up with some really great recommendations that would involve, changing the road alignment, changing the alignment of the water course that is currently what sort of defines those curves on St. John's Road. It would involve including active transportation infrastructure for bicyclists and pedestrians. It would even include things like low impact development drainage features and other ecological features that would benefit the community in the area. Unfortunately, that study was completed before some decisions were made around some development in the south end of Alcona. Those developments then impact the traffic volumes that are predicted for the roadway. And that will then influence the layout of that roadway, particularly with respect to the number of lanes required for vehicle traffic. So we're still waiting on, kind of finalized numbers around employment and around number of persons who will be living in those areas that then would feed into additional modeling, which would then be used to refine those predictions around what that roadway would have to look like to accommodate those vehicles. But yes, the intent is to make some pretty substantial changes within the next few years to the 7th line, including new active transportation infrastructure, including realigning parts of that water course, and that will then in turn impact the intersection.
Thank you, Carolina. Any other questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, we have a motion that's been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Staff Sergeant Phillips, for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Council, it is 9:03. Can I suggest a 5-minute break so we can stand up and ask if we could be back at 9:10 and carry on? Yes, Deputy Clerk.
We voted on the amendment, but we need to vote on the motion as amended to include all of the additional clauses. Thank you.
Thank you. I am just so not very good on my procedure tonight, am I? All right, so we've got the motion as amended now, and that would be moved by Councillor Arsati and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. All right, so if we could come back at 9:10 and we'll carry on. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Counsel. So we'll get started again. And the next item that was pulled for further discussion and debate was item C2. And that was Deputy Mayor Davidson. Do you have a seconder, Deputy Mayor?
I'm just trying to bring it back up on my screen. I have Council Bill Van Berkel. What I was looking at regarding that park is the, just trying to get back there on my other computer. We've made some changes to the park because of the noise concerns brought forward by the residents in that area. I had a chance earlier last month to speak to Nicole Bowman, and I think we're in the right direction. The one thing that just caught my attention was the noise. They're bringing, I guess, whatever they bring, Bose box or whatever it is, and they're having music played loudly. And there was something in the report, I'm just trying to bring it back up, a better signage regarding noise in that particular area. So what I'd like to see is no music allowed in that area, because your interpretation of loud and another person's interpretation of loud is quite different. So I think if we could have no music allowed in that park while they're playing basketball or whatever it is, we can, here it is, maybe eliminate another concern. I really like the report, the way it was done, and it involves our youth, but I think sometimes youth need to be reminded they can't do everything they please or everything they wish. We're hearing a lot of that entitlement society, and they're part of the act as well. So what's going on? So if you bring it in the recommendations, signage will be altered to impress upon users the need for a respectable level of noise. So I think we want to bring that respectable level of noise. No boom boxes, no Bose boxes, none of that allowed on site on the basketball court. I think that could appease a lot of the neighbors with the noise that we're having in that issue.
Ms. Bowman, I'm not certain if this is if you're asking for a revised recommendation, Deputy Mayor, or.
Well, I'd like to hear her opinion on that first, and then I can decide if I'll revise it.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman, Director Bowman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to the Deputy Mayor. This conversation did come up about how do we help the users attend the park, but also monitoring the volume of noise. There's some practical considerations in there too, to place no music or no amplified sounds, etc. It becomes very difficult to enforce. And we believe that if we can address some of the other issues by changing some of the signage and encouraging more respectful use of the park, I think we can work with what we've got here in the recommendation. However, we will continue to monitor the situation and see if this recommendation has the desired effect. Should we need to have a different type of messaging, we'll continue to experiment and adjust that to something we can enforce, but something that is also respectful of those who are attending the park and how they use the park, and finding that right balance.
Follow up, Your Worship. Okay. I like that approach that we take it a step by step. I like the idea that you had cameras there that were watching what was going on and the usage and such in the park, so we get the actual information. I will be pleased to go along with what we have here without a amendment. But if we do get noise complaints regarding music, which is everybody's interpretation of loudness is different, we are prepared to go forward with banning music from that particular park because of the closeness to the residents. Is that okay, Nicole? I mean, Director Bowman, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We're certainly interested in following a stepwise approach to managing the issues and not trying to jump too far too fast. We'll certainly keep an eye on things and continue to adjust as needed.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to point out, Ms. Bowman, I do believe that the residents who were bringing up these concerns in the first place were notified this was on here tonight.
Yes, Your Worship. I understand that the clerk's team had reached out and they are aware.
Thank you so much for that. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Next was item C4, Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I need a seconder.
Councillor Orsatti.
Yes, Your Worship. I read the report and I agree with your report. My only concern is there's still, a lot of older people that, they like the traditional way of voting. And I was just wondering if there would be a traditional poll somewhere, whether it's on the day of or a week before or whatever, where they could vote, by ballot. That was the only concern I had.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. Deputy Clerk Thoma.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Van Berkel. Staff recognizes the history and tradition of attending a voting location on election day to cast a ballot. That has been a typical way since democracy has been in place. But we also recognize that the world has changed and it's evolved into more of a fast-paced, convenience-driven society. So what we're going to try and do with this election is proposing a voting method that upholds the in-person tradition, but also ensures the convenience of the access to quick, secure, convenient method of voting via electronic voting. So similar to our last election, eligible voters will receive a voter information letter. This will advise them of voting dates. Typically, most likely will band with the other Simcoe County municipalities who are using this method and run a 10-day voting period. So we will have advanced locations. We'll provide that to the voter. Most likely town hall will be open and have a voting location, and we'll be offering the option of, in the voter information letter, we'll provide the option to either vote electronically or to come into a voting location where they'll be provided an electronic ballot via means of a tablet along with a stylus. So they get the ballot, they're able to make their mark. We found that it was actually quite an eye-opening experience that when we got away from using or providing tablets as opposed to computers, the voters coming through our voting station last election were really happy with that experience.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think that that's the right thing to do. Also, one other question. Are we using the same people that we did the last time for machines?
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel. We would be putting out most likely an RFP and looking for the best price and option. I do know that Dominion, which was our provider last election, has looked at their process and what occurred. They've made some significant changes and they actually will not be offering telephone voting. So with that in mind, they would probably not be able to meet the specs of an RFP.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Thoma. I too am one of those people who loves the tradition of going on election day and making my X. However, with COVID, we don't know where we're going to be this time next year, hopefully even better than we are today. But also a couple of other things that came up the last election. First of all, our non-residents who own land here and our seasonal residents who are able to vote, and also university kids so that are away at university have the opportunity, they can vote on their cell phone, and certainly people with accessibility issues as well. It makes life easier for them. So I had exactly the same questions as you did, Councillor Van Berkel. Can't we just open one polling station? But moving from a confusing laptop for someone who's not digitally literate to putting an X on a tablet instead of a piece of paper helped me get over that. Any other questions or comments on this item? Councillor Orsatti?
Thank you, Your Worship. To Ms. Toma, nice to see you. Always smiling, Ms. Toma. I guess two things. One on the technical issues, and I think I'm feel more reassured we're not using the same provider. But from the technical, it was unauthorized reduction in bandwidth to the town. Is that something that IT is able to look at, or is that a service provider issue from their technical side? Because I was just looking at in the report, I think I pulled that up. And then my follow-up comments were, I think in here it talks about limited voting stations. And I believe that there was probably staff that took those tablets into Sandy Cove Acres, which has 1,800 seniors, many who are not able to get out. That's one area I certainly think of, providing that opportunity, because they don't have the transportation to even get to the town and they do want to vote. The last comment that I'll make is I had one resident in my ward who is blind. And so she wasn't able to read anything on it, and she wasn't able to use the phone. So I brought her into the town, and clerk services were able to help her. And it's just something that in accessibility, I think we need to be more and more aware of the things that are outside of the norm that we have to always be prepared for. And clerks did an amazing job in support for that individual. So just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Toma. It was Dominion's issues, not IT's issues. Is that not correct?
That's correct. And through Your Worship to Councillor Orsatti, I believe that it was a very eye-opening experience for all of the providers, and something that they've all looked at and put backup plans into place and testing, but that is the onus on that is on the provider. And as there is a 10-day voting period, it does open up the doorway for voting at various times, getting your vote in. And I believe all of the providers have put backup plans and redundancies in place with additional servers to ensure that it does have access for that. And in response to your other question regarding Sandy Cove Acres, that will be part of the election plan as well, is ensuring that we're out in the communities where we're needed, and that we provide assistance where we're needed, and that the beauty of internet voting and telephone voting is it's very accessible. You can do it in your home. If you have children, students who are away at school, they're able to still vote. And with Sandy Cove Acres, initially when we were doing our rolling polling voting station, we were out with computers and laptops. It wasn't until we actually had the voting location at Town Hall that we recognized that tablets were more accessible and people had a better voting experience and were able to go through the process a little bit more easily themselves. I also believe that with, one of the outcomes of the COVID environment that we're living in is it's moved the digital literacy environment, and programs have opened up across the province, across the world. So people are more connected and able to use electronic devices a little bit more readily.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the recommendation? Those opposed? That's carried. And the next item is C6, and that is the Innisfil Beach Park drainage, landscape and trail improvements. And I believe there was a couple of comments on this. Councillor Waters, and a seconder to put it on the floor, please.
I think Councillor Nicol.
Okay, Councillor Nicol. Go ahead, Councillor Waters.
Yeah, I first of all, I want to say we're glad in Ward 4 to finally see this project moving forward. I remember all this resident interactions that we had at the library, and everyone has been keen, and I've even had a few residents calling me when this is going to happen. So I think they're going to be glad to see this happen sooner rather than later. So first of all, I think it's a great project, and I think it's going to resolve a lot of the flooding around Park. My question is the amenity of the trail, which they want to install, and maybe it was just staff want to get this moving forward, and asphalt is the fastest, quickest way. However, we in the staff and town keep on talking about wanting to do things a better way, a more sustainable way. And I thought it might be an opportunity to kind of amend this slightly that include a walkway that has that they investigate some alternative surface solutions which are more permeable or more durable. Because the one thing about, and most people will notice the asphalt pathway in the park. I used to rollerblade along that. I would never rollerblade along it now. It's just deteriorated so much that it's more dangerous. And so asphalt is a nice, quick, easy solution at the beginning, but it's not very durable. It doesn't last very long. And so I would like staff to take a look at an alternative solution to asphalt that's a little more durable, a little more environmentally friendly. So I was hoping to maybe add a friendly amendment to it that staff investigate alternative trail surfaces that are more sustainable.
Thank you. Any comments, Ms. Leal or Mr. Deloitte?
I do. Good evening. It's Amber Leal here. I just wanted to address the councillor's comments regarding the asphalt surface. Staff did consider alternative materials for the trail. Through the design process and collaboration with our operations team, it was decided on asphalt as the material of choice for this location. It was primarily decided based on the anticipated high traffic use, both pedestrian and recreational in this area of the park, as well the future need to have heavy equipment for maintenance along the channel. And finally, the connection to the existing trail network within the park. This piece of the perimeter trail would be better suited as asphalt. It is in the future plan that operations will be maintaining the trail year round, and maintenance costs around clearing the asphalt trail are significantly lower and less time consuming than the maintenance of the granular trails. So as an offset, town staff in collaboration with the LSRCA agreed to plant more trees and shrubs to decrease the ecological footprint. Moving forward with the future designs of the interior trails network within the park, I think alternative materials may be more readily an acceptable material. And then I just wanted to follow up on the comment regarding the South Streams network and the tree planting. We had engaged the South Streams network in an earlier stage of design and have done so again just this evening to see if there's room for project coordination to help with the landscaping costs. So thank you for the reminder.
Thank you. Councillor Waters?
Kind of a follow-up. What alternatives did you look at? Because all I heard was granular. And there are a lot of products out there which can replace asphalt that are more durable, can handle heavy equipment. And in fact, they don't even have to be you can grow grass in some of these heavy duty grids that are supplied. So I'm kind of curious, what other alternatives did you investigate?
I think from memory, we investigated limestone, concrete, and just standard granular trails.
So my question still remains, is that there are a lot of other alternatives out there? It doesn't seem like an exhaustive list of materials that we could be looking at that will basically do what you're asking to in terms of heavy equipment and those other things. So I guess my question is, we keep talking about sustainability, but we keep on going back to the same old. And oops.
Sorry, I think Amber's having some computer issues there. Can you still hear us, Amber?
Can Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
So I think at this point in the tendering process, we might have some procurement issues with removing that from the contract right now. We can certainly check into it if it doesn't impact our contractual obligations. I'm happy to look into other options, especially if you have some suggestions that you know of offhand.
Mr. Deloitte, did you want to comment?
So, yeah, I take what Councillor Waters is saying as a very friendly amendment to what we're doing. We'd like the project to proceed, but there are going to be future trails in this and other parks. So I think the point is well taken, and we'd certainly be happy to look at alternative surface materials that meet the all-weather sustainability part, the geogrids and other things that can be done. Certainly when there's forest, you can have a much different level of trail surface. And we're doing the land and lake study and transportation master plan. And I think there's an opportunity through the transportation master plan on the, the active transportation side to encourage cycling and other means of non-motorized travel. So I think we can bake it into that. And we'd be happy to look at that.
That would be greatly appreciated. And I can send you a list of materials that I know about, and you may add to a list that you've already started. So that friendly amendment would be helpful, and just to ensure that we do look at that, not only for this project, for all other projects down the road.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a question, Ms. Leal. I remember getting a couple of emails about people concerned that they were being asked to put some kind of infrastructure or on their own property and how it would be maintained. I'm sorry, it's just vague in my memory, but is some of this project on private property?
So I'm going to turn it over to Amber, but generally what we're doing is we're migrating it off of Park Road and putting the drainage and all the works into the park. And that minimizes affecting anybody. And we just need to then, having put the drainage channel in, we need to connect the neighborhood. And so, but that's all going to be on public property, not on private property.
Thank you. Go ahead, Amber.
Just to follow up on a brief high-level summary of those concerns. Those concerns were related to the existing water course that travels through the ditch network on Park Road. And their concerns were related to the requirement that they are not allowed to fill it in, just despite the fact that we are making these very big improvements that will improve their life quite significantly. For bigger storms, for over the 100-year storm, we are still going to need that ditch network to support larger storm events. And so that was a quick summary of that. And now those residents have also been notified, and I haven't heard anything back from them about that. So I think we've closed the loop on that.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know that they're really, really anxious to get going on that. Councillor Waters?
I just want to mention one other thing too, is that I'm really glad to see that they've are going to try to make it a more naturalized look as opposed to a drainage ditch. I think that'll add some benefit to the park. It will add benefit to some wildlife that's there. And I'm glad that they're working with Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority on that. So kudos to them for taking that approach to it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Arsadi?
Thank you, Your Worship. It just, in looking at the report and listening to Councillor Waters, with the naturalized area of this that's in the park side with the vegetation, I remember when this was up in the drawings before for the park, I wondered if there couldn't be signage talking that just indicate a naturalized area or habitat area, and even listing maybe some of the grasses or whatever. This would, I think, reduce the visitors from throwing garbage in here or not appreciating it or stomping through the area when you understand that it's designed this way. It's not needs, but it's an actual design. And I think it helps to educate our community and visitors to what we're doing.
And through you, your worship, to the counselor, 100% agree with you. We have been in the process of developing an educational campaign in coordination with our ops department and some external players to be able to put up some signage and identify some natural habitat pieces that people will be able to enjoy and see what we're doing here, not only from an infrastructure point of view, but from an environmental standpoint as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. All those in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That is carried. And I believe that was all the items that we had. So we'll go to our rise recommendation now, please. And that would be moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That's carried. And now consideration of adoption of the recommendations from the Committee of the Whole. And that would be moved by Deputy Mayor Davidson and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? And that is carried. There is a notice of motion or notices of which motion has been given. There is none. Announcements, please. Announcements, members of council. The birthday boy, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I really thought that Councillor Roadside would have jumped all over this, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody does recognize that the Innisfil Farmers Market last week did the annual pumpkin contest. And as the most original and as the past most unique pumpkin winner, I wanted to remind everybody that I still have the 2 titles now. Happily, there was an amazing submission from an under 12-year-old who made a beautiful hamburger. Happily, my son was able to come in second for that as well. But I did want to recognize Councillor Orsatti. Although last Pumpkin Fest, she was the most scariest pumpkin. This year, she did win the most, the #1 pumpkin anyway. So, but I do still have my 2 medals that will go along with my 3 or 4 golden brooms. So I'll put those together. Thank you.
You're not bragging, are you?
Yeah, we're only allowing the gloating because it's his birthday. Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Just to let you know, my trophy is bigger. So so we'll have to get that in. But I knew that I couldn't compete. The council members, submitting their pumpkins. Councillor Van Berkel, I thought was so creative. And the carving in yours, Councillor Nicol and Councillor Fowler, I knew I couldn't compete with them. And I thought, as being on the library board, that I would take the opportunity to create a family of pumpkins that really told the story about our libraries. And that it's not just about books and what is at each library. So it was a surprise to me to win, but I really felt that it was the library that won. So thank you for recognizing that and mentioning it.
Other announcements, Councillor Payne.
I want to let Councillor Nicol know that because I got 2 awards last year, I didn't do one this year because I didn't want to be a pig about it. So next year, look out, bud. I'm coming back.
I didn't realize how much of a competitive bunch you all were. Other questions or announcements? Sorry, Councillor Waters.
I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to ask you to say a few words about the big announcement today.
Be happy to. Really exciting day. Thank you, Councillor Waters. Very exciting day for the town of Innisfil, and thank you all for being there. It was great to have all of you there to announce the new location for the South Campus of Royal Victoria Hospital. I don't think most people understand the width and the depth of what creating a hospital takes. And we've been at this since I think 2017, and we're only this far down the road. I don't want to create the expectation that there's going to be shovels in the ground tomorrow. There's certainly a lot of work for RVH to do. The Board of Governors are very committed, and they're doing lots of lobbying, and we will do our part in everything we can to support them. But it's the RVH Board of Directors and the Ministry of the Health who are steering this project, and we're along for the ride, and couldn't be more pleased to have this located in the town of Innisfil. It's something our residents and all of South Simcoe will benefit from, and our residents deserve it. And I think that not only will it create healthcare closer to home, but also create a lot of great jobs and a lot of vitality around the campus. Thank you, Councillor Waters. Go ahead.
Just one thing I will mention is that the architect from Diamond Schmidt sought me out, and we started chit-chatting about sustainability. So he was told that he should specifically talk to me about sustainability. So it seems it's on their radar already. So I was really pleased to chat with them in terms of what the opportunities might be at the hospital. So I'm glad to see that's already on the table.
Thank you. And I was so worried about thanking anybody this morning. And who did I forget but the Ices family? So thank you so much to the Ices family and staff that have been working so hard on this as well. It's an exciting day and a big step. There's a long road ahead, but you have to, celebrate the milestones, and this is a huge one. Thank you. Other announcements? I had just a couple little ones. I wanted to acknowledge that I attended, along with Councillor Nicol, the celebration of life for John Wardrop last week. It was really, oh, and sorry, Deputy Mayor, you were there too. I apologize. And former Mayor Walkup was there. Is there anybody else I'm missing? Seems to be a theme of mine today, skipping over people. It was so well done. And the way that there was a lot of South Simcoe police officers there, because as you know, he was a big supporter of South Simcoe Police. And former Sergeant Steve Wilson was there and made a speech. And just at the right moment, the police boat drove by and put on the air horn. And it was very touching, and the family was quite impressed. I also wanted to just quickly say that this weekend there's pop-up shop this weekend on I believe the 16th at the library. And also the Deputy Mayor and I and the CEO of RVH will be hosting a listening session to talk more about the South Campus and what people would like to see. And it is on the 18th of October from 7 till 8 p.m. It's a virtual event. And that's all my announcements, except to say that you're all very talented pumpkin carvers. All right.
Well, I want a medal too, and it looks just like Rob's. I don't know what it's for, but I won one.
So thanks, everyone. So that's any announcements from, where's Mr. Melanishin? Melanishin, any announcements from staff for the good of the corporation?
Your Worship, we had a heavy agenda tonight. We covered a lot of grounds. I think that's it for this evening. On behalf of staff, it's an absolute pleasure to work with this council on making a difference in the residents' lives. So greatly appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Melanishin. So next is the confirming bylaw, and that would be moved by Deputy Mayor Davidson and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. And adjournment. That will be moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks everyone very much, and have a good rest of the evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Yeah.